The evening sun bled across the western sky, turning the dry plains into rivers of fire and gold. The wind carried the scent of dust, gun oil, and something else, something that made even the horses restless. Inside the small log cabin, Jake Callahan wiped the sweat from his brow, his hand brushing the old scar that ran along his temple. He'd fought in wars, crossed deserts, and faced bandits who'd kill for a handful of silver. But tonight, something in the air felt different. A faint drumbeat rolled across the valley, slow, steady, closer. Jake's jaw tightened. He stepped outside, his boots sinking into the soft dirt. From the cabin porch, the world looked endless miles of prairie grass waving in the dying light. And then he saw it, thin trails of smoke rising from the far ridge. Not campfires, signal fires. Apache, he muttered under his breath. Behind him, the door creaked open. Elena stepped out, her hands trembling as she clutched a weathered shawl around her shoulders. Her eyes dark, calm, and defiant met his. "You said they wouldn't find us," she whispered. Jake turned to her slowly, his face unreadable. "I said we'd have time. I didn't say how much." The sound of horses came faintly now, carried by the wind hoof beats like thunder in the distance. 200 Apache warriors, by the look of those smoke lines, maybe more. The whole valley would soon burn with fire and vengeance. Elena's gaze drifted past him, to the open land beyond. "They're my people, Jake," she said softly. "They'll listen to me." He shook his head. "No, they won't. You're the chief's daughter, yes, but to them, you're the one who ran away with the enemy." For a long moment, neither spoke. The light faded, shadows stretched, and the first stars began to rise above the mountains. Then, distant war cries echoed across the plain. Elena's breath caught in her throat. Jake placed a hand on his revolver. "It's starting," he said quietly. And as the first line of Apache riders appeared on the horizon, painted faces gleaming, spears catching the fire of the sunset, Elena took a step forward, her voice trembling with something between fear and destiny. "They're coming for blood," she whispered. Jake's hand brushed hers for a fleeting second. "Then let's give them something worth fighting for." The night came fast, swallowing the horizon in darkness and smoke. The Apache riders formed a circle around the cabin, 200 silhouettes. Against the flickering firelight, their chants rose and fell like the heartbeat of the earth, steady and merciless. Jake could see their torches moving closer, reflecting off the barrel of his rifle. He had loaded every bullet he owned, knowing it still wouldn't be enough. Inside, Elena paced beside the window, her hands trembling but her eyes burning with resolve. "If I go out there," she said, "they'll stop. My father will listen." Jake turned sharply. "He'll listen long enough to aim his rifle. You left him for me, Elena. There's no forgiveness for that in their world." But she didn't flinch. "Then maybe it's time to change their world." Before Jake could answer, a voice thundered from beyond the flames, a deep, commanding call that silenced the chants. The chief, his words rolled across the plains in the Apache tongue, fierce and filled with sorrow. Jake didn't need to understand every word. The tone said enough. He was calling for Elena. Elena stepped toward the door, the firelight catching in her hair. "If I don't go, they'll burn the cabin and kill you." Jake grabbed her arm. "And if you do go, they might take you and make sure I watch." She looked up at him, tears shining in her eyes. "Then let them. But they'll see my face, and they'll know I came back for peace." Outside, the drums began again, slower now, like the sound of a heartbeat fading in and out. Jake hesitated for only a moment before he followed her out into the firelight. The sight stopped him cold. Hundreds of Apache warriors sat mounted on painted horses, feathers whipping in the wind. Their faces were hard, but their eyes, those fierce, ancient eyes, were filled with pain. At their center sat the chief, tall and grave, a hawk feather tied in his hair. His gaze fell upon his daughter, and for a moment, the world stood still. "Elena," he said, his voice carrying through the smoke, "you walk with the man who spilled our blood." She took a step forward, her voice breaking but strong. "I walk with the man who saved my life." The warriors murmured among themselves. Jake stood behind her, silent but ready, his revolver heavy at his side. The chief's eyes flicked to him, then back to her. "Then tonight," he said slowly, "we will see which blood the spirits choose." The flames roared higher, painting the night red. Elena stood between two worlds, her father's, and the man she loved as the circle, of fire closed tighter around them. The fire cracked like thunder as 200 Apache warriors encircled the small cabin, their shadows dancing wildly in the red glow of torchlight. Smoke curled up into the star-streaked sky, turning the night into a living painting of flame and fury. Jake stood beside Elena, his rifle lowered but his pulse hammering. With every beat of the war drums echoing through the valley, the chief sat tall upon his horse, his eyes fixed on them, eyes that carried the weight of old battles, of loss and of a father's broken pride. "Bring him forward," he commanded, and the painted warriors approached Jake with spears drawn. Elena stepped before him, trembling yet fearless. "No, he's done nothing against you," she cried, but her father raised a hand, silencing her. "He took what is mine, my daughter, my honor. Yet the spirits have not struck him down, so we shall ask them ourselves." The crowd murmured as the chief motioned toward a circle of sacred stones. Beyond the firelight, a place marked by the ancestors. It was the ground of judgment, where truth was decided not by words but by courage. Jake's eyes narrowed as he understood. "What's he saying?" he asked quietly. "He wants the spirits to decide if you live," Elena whispered, her voice breaking. Jake's lips curled in a faint, fearless smile. "Fair enough. Been judged by worse." The warriors led him to the sacred circle, and the drums grew louder, their rhythm merging with the restless wind. Elena tried to follow, but the chief stopped her with a gesture. "You will stay. If your heart is true, he will live. If not," his eyes glowed with both pain and pride, "then the fire will take him." Jake stood alone in the circle, the heat of the flames licking at his back. The chants of the warriors rose like a storm, and through it all, he never looked away from Elena. She whispered his name once, a fragile prayer carried on the wind. The chief stepped forward, drawing a blade from his belt, its edge glinting like moonlight. He cut his palm, letting blood drip into the dust, then offered the blade to Jake. "If you are not afraid," he said solemnly, "cut your hand and face me as a warrior." Jake took the knife and sliced his own palm without hesitation, their blood mixing in the dirt below. The chant stopped. The fire bent inward as though the world itself was holding its breath. And for the first time since the war drums began, Elena saw something unexpected in her father's eyes, not fury, not hate, but a glimmer of mercy. The night had gone completely still, as if even the wind dared not move. Every Apache warrior stood silent, their eyes fixed on the two figures within the circle of fire: Jake Callahan, the white gunslinger who had once fought them, and Chief Taza, the proud leader whose daughter now stood between love and war. The air shimmered with heat and fate. Jake's blood dripped into the sacred dust beside the chief's, the two red streams twisting together before sinking into the earth. The chief raised his hand, palm still bleeding, and began to chant softly in the old tongue. The warriors answered with low murmurs, the sound rising and falling like a storm trapped inside a heartbeat. Jake stared straight ahead, steady and unafraid, though he could feel death breathing at his back. "Your courage speaks," the chief said finally, his voice rough like gravel. "But courage does not cleanse the blood on your hands." Jake's voice was low, tired but sincere. "I didn't kill your men. I saved your daughter when your enemies came for her. I fought men wearing your colors, but they were no longer yours for a moment." Only the fire spoke, spitting and crackling in the night. Then Elena broke free from the crowd, falling to her knees between them. "Father, look at him," she cried. "He could have run. He could have left me to die, but he stayed. If his soul was false, the spirits would have taken him long ago." The chief looked down at his daughter, the one he had mourned, the one he had cursed, and his weathered face softened. He turned to Jake and saw not an enemy, but a man who carried his fate with honor. Slowly, he raised his blood-stained hand and touched it to Jake's. Then, "Let the spirits judge us both," he whispered. The drums stopped. The fire flared high, sparks shooting into the heavens like 1,000 tiny suns. The silence that followed was so deep it seemed to swallow the world. Then, somewhere in the distance, a coyote cried and the chief stepped back. "You are free to go," he said. "The war ends here." Jake bowed his head, breathless and grateful. Elena's tears shimmered in the light as she reached for him. The warriors parted, their torches lowering in respect. As Jake and Elena walked away into the endless night, the chief's voice carried softly on the wind. "Love can break what even war could not." Behind them, The fire dimmed, and the drums never beat again.